Hello, this is Nate, and I made a mistake during the recording of this episode that led to our guest's audio not being the level that I would have liked. That is my fault. I apologize to our guest, sorry Keith, and I apologize to our listeners. Anyway, here's the episode.
Welcome to Nice Ashes. Join hosts Mike and Nate for cigars and culture. Let's go beyond the smoke.
I was able to track down our sole listener. Keith is with us on the show.
Hello, me.
Hey. How's it going, Keith?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Excellent.
And Keith is here because he is starting his own podcast. And actually, by the time this episode comes out, there will be several episodes out. But he's starting his very own podcast, Life After the Military, Now What? And I was able to listen to the first episode, which, as of recording date, is not on the streets yet. So I made a deal with the devil to get an early listen of that. So Keith is here to talk about that with us. And what are we smoking with Keith today, Mike?
We're smoking something really nice, and I think now that I know the guest is Keith. Now, Keith, you were kept secret from me. You were a surprise guest, and Nate said that I would be excited, and he's not lying. So we have a La Gloria Cubana Esteli, and this is going to be a good cigar. I'm going to be angry if this is not a good cigar.
Yeah, it looks great, and we like the Serie R from them. Actually, I don't think I've smoked one of theirs that I haven't liked.
Par for the course, I'm having lighter problems.
Yes, and computer issues, but we don't need to get into those. First few puffs of this are really nice, dark. Keith is lit as well. You have any initial thoughts, Keith?
Not much of a cigar smoker, but yeah, so far so good.
Little darker, more intense than a cigarette, maybe?
A little bit, yeah. I gotta just remember not to inhale.
Yes. Yes, hold it in your mouth, if at all possible. Things I can say to guests on the podcast and my wife. So we're just over here hamming it up, getting lots of pics for the Instagram. I don't know. That last one, Keith, with that extra button down might be for the OnlyFans. Nice Ashes OnlyFans. You lit, Mike?
I am lit. It is very dark. Very dark.
Yes.
In a good way.
But not in a harsh way.
No, not in a harsh way. I like it.
Keith and I are pairing our cigars with Dogfish Head 60-minute IPA. And I remember back in the early days of craft beer, you couldn't find this except for on the East Coast, I think.
Nice. I'm pairing mine with water today.
Very nice. For a long time, you could only get that on the East Coast, I think.
Or Flint, Michigan.
Like that. I got her straight from the Mississippi.
There you go.
Beaver fever be damned.
I had that once.
Beaver fever?
Much younger man.
I thought that's what they called you in college. You had the beaver fever.
I'm feeling too many secrets.
Oh, dang it. You're still at large. The beaver fever culprit is still at large. Your secret is safe. Keith, why don't you tell us a little bit about your podcast? And
Yeah, you bet. So about 2 months ago, I was driving to my job. You know, I'm a plumber, and my mind is just always all over the fucking place, just wanders, thinking about dumb shit. And I started thinking about how a podcast about talking to veterans about what they now do after they separate from the military, whether it's an occupation, their occupation. Because I'm a veteran, and how I got to where I am is just kind of a weird, all over the place story. So, I just thought it would be interesting to talk to other veterans on, what paths they took once they got out of the military to get where they are today. I thought it would be helpful for other veterans to hear, different options, different occupations and stuff that people get into once they get out of the military.
That sounds pretty interesting.
yeah, very cool. Your first episode is different in a sense that it's only you, and your other episodes all have guests.
Yeah. So April 28th is when I'm dropping the first 2 episodes. The first one is just it's kind of a shorter one where it's just my story, and then the next one after that is my buddy from growing up. We both joined the Army at the same time, and so he's my first interview. And then today I had my second interview today. So that's another guy that I was in my unit with, deployed to Iraq with him, and yeah, got a couple other ones lined up so far.
Very nice. What's your first guest's name?
Dylan Nelson. You remember him?
I don't know if that's public knowledge or not, but Keith and I and Nate and Dylan all know each other. So shocking, I know.
Weird how that works.
Small world. The coincidences are astounding.
It is. Crazy. Yeah, I haven't seen Dylan high school probably.
Yeah, he lives out in Montana, and he does not come to Minnesota very often.
Oh, okay. Is he western Montana, mountain area Montana, eastern Montana?
You know, I just, as of the episode I did with him, finally got it straight that it's Montana, not Wyoming, so I could not fucking tell you which side of Montana.
Wait, those are two different states?
Right. Apparently. Beautiful states, both of them, but I can't tell the difference.
Yeah, if you're from there, we totally can. We know they're very unique and stuff. Kind of like I tell people from Iowa, I'm sorry that you're from Iowa.
You mean southern Minnesota?
Yeah, I'd say northern something, but my geography doesn't go that far down. So would you say there are any common themes you've picked up so far on the interviews you have done for your podcast with veterans and what they do after?
Not in the slightest. So Dylan, he works for BNSF Railway as a field communications manager. He was in the Army Reserves and got into the railroad while still in. And the gentleman I talked to today, he was an infantryman with me, and he got out and he's an actor now. So far, no common themes. And then coming up, I have a welder. And then after that, I don't even know. He works for some big corporate thing, I guess. So we'll find out more on that one. But yeah, so far no common themes. Getting into this, I assumed, being an infantryman, I'd be talking to a lot of cops. And so far, no cops on the schedule.
That's interesting. So you would assume that certain roles in the military would gravitate to law enforcement, or those skills would be transferable?
Yeah, I mean, just right out the gate as an infantryman, my skill set is either private security or law enforcement. Obviously, I didn't go that route. I went to college and did something else for a while, and then ended up getting into a plumbing apprenticeship, and now I'm a plumber. So, I mean, yeah, a lot of guys that I do know, they went into law enforcement. I don't have any of them lined up to interview yet, but I mean, that is a fairly common theme for infantrymen anyway.
Sure. And the full details of Keith's story is his very first episode. That's out on all the major platforms and on his website. I'm sure it will be linked there eventually, or you can find more information on his website at 28aprilproductions.com. But you're pushing out to all the platforms?
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be on all of them. As far as the website goes, I own the domain and I use the email, but I haven't actually done anything with the website yet. But yeah, eventually, I have a Facebook right now, and eventually I'll have more social media to look at too, but so far nothing.
It's all good. How many years did we run, Mike, without anything? Probably at least 2.
Probably 2.
I don't think we got a website until the start of season 3, and then I got the website and the social media stuff going, and took us a little bit to figure out that we can record indoors, and certain microphone types aren't conducive to running fans and blowing smoke.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a learning curve. I do have an audio background. Way back in the day out of high school, I went to school for audio recording prior to joining the Army. Didn't go for very long, but I had background in it a little bit. But even now, doing these recordings, I'm just learning a lot as I go.
Yes, and I don't think Mike or I had any kind of audio background at all, unless, Mike, you're holding out on me, just so you don't have to do the editing.
If so, he's an asshole.
Yeah. In high school, I did, actually.
You take video productions in high school?
Yeah, I took video production for 4 years, I want to say. So.
Well, then we were probably in the same class at some point.
Yep, we had to have been. Yeah, we had to have been. I did a lot of cartoons. I did a lot of the animated cartoons for the school news.
Okay.
That was kind of more my jam.
I usually ran the board there for the news.
Oh, sure. Heck yeah. We had student news, and we had little shorts, comedic skits and stuff, and I enjoyed doing that.
Do you have any of those still, Mike?
I would have to dig in my hard drive. I'd have to dig in my hard drive.
You still have a hard drive from almost 20 years ago?
Dude, I am a pack rat when it comes to file storage. I probably have my freshman year of college term papers still saved on a hard drive somewhere.
Nice.
I don't throw that shit away.
I do have hard drives from that long ago with stuff that I'd like off of there, but I also don't want to ask somebody to get it off of there for me because I don't know what's on there and I don't want them to see.
Well, we've got a friend of the show that is in data recovery. So if they're damaged, he can get them off. Otherwise, I have a cable that can connect any hard drive to my Linux. And Linux doesn't care if it's corrupt or not. It's like, hey, I see files. Let's do this.
Now, can you access that without looking at it?
Yeah, I can just do Control A. But now that you've said there's stuff on there that shouldn't be seen, I'm very curious.
I don't know.
Not like wheelchair porn or whatever. Like, whatever.
Backdoor Sluts 9.
Yeah, we saw worse stuff on the free websites, didn't we in college and stuff? Like in that era of the internet?
The era of no rules.
Yes, the lawless wasteland of the internet where there was beheading and other things.
So
we can bring him back.
Nate was pretty excited to have me on because he thought you and I would just sit here and fight because you're an electrician and I'm a plumber. So should we give him a show or?
Sure.
I keep trying to get Nice Ashes the fight, and we're doing the stuff where Mike's supposed to like it, and then he's like, I think you like this more than I do. And we just don't fight. I mean, Mike doesn't sound like that. I don't know why I did that weird voice for him, but
yeah, I mean, we could do a fake fight. It's always enjoyable, the quote unquote battle of the trades.
Right.
When where I did my private sector time, the plumbers and the electricians were union, and everybody else was non-union. So we always got along really well with them, and the tin knockers too, because that's still local 10 going into like North Dakota, Montana area. So the tin knockers, the plumbers, and the electricians were always on the same team on the job site.
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't know. I typically don't fight with any of the trades.
No. That is like a route to destruction. And the guys that engage in that behavior typically don't want to get the project done right there. Yeah. They're interested in other things. So I know that everybody likes to shit on the Sparkies for being messy. And I'm not exempt from that. I don't clean up after myself either, but
It's funny because you guys have the cleanest pants I've ever seen, but leave the biggest fucking mess. It just doesn't make any sense. Whereas like me, like I leave a job site and like I have just all kinds of solvents all over me and I look like a homeless person, but my work area is nice and clean.
Yeah, we let the laborers clean up after us. That's what we're told to do.
Well, and I guess to be fair, wire doesn't really stick to pants where solvent sticks to pretty much anything it touches, right?
Yeah, but electricians work with solvents too.
They're not supposed to when they're working. It's like one of those weird things where if the waiter asks if you want a beverage, you technically can't order water because a beverage is defined as anything other than water. Anything you drink other than water. So water is not a beverage.
Hot take.
I can tell you the key for me to keep clean, but I would wear bibs and a long sleeve shirt, and I would take that off when I got into my personal truck and throw it in the back of the truck. So I never got any work dirt in the cab of my vehicle ever, and nobody ever did. All the electricians, we all had outer clothing, and then you took that off. And then you had like your street clothes underneath.
Yeah, us plumbers were sloppy fuckers.
Well, I've seen your truck, and I mean, I would not be bringing dirt into that thing. You know what I mean?
I have a company truck.
Oh, you have a company truck?
Yeah.
When I had a company truck, I didn't give a shit. But if I was driving my personal vehicle to a job, there was, one of my toolies, he had a thing about hard hats. He wouldn't allow a hard hat in the cab of his truck. So if you wanted to take a break and we had to go into a personal vehicle, you had to leave the hard hats outside in the back of the truck in the winter or whatever. He didn't give a shit.
It's an odd hill to die on.
He was an interesting character, and he was really tall, and we needed him. So you can make your own rules when you're like 6'6". More bills.
You're that, Nate?
I got to put weight on is what I'm hearing.
You're halfway there to, with the height part.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Where are you at with your cigar, Mike?
I don't think I'm quite halfway, but I'm like 3/4, maybe 2/3.
You're 3/4. You're not halfway, but you're 3/4. This is why the third pounder failed in America.
Yeah, that's true. I think I have 2/3 left, something like that.
Oh, okay.
I'm about 3/8 of an inch from the band.
Okay, I just took my band off. We're probably fairly close. I think Keith is a little behind us, but he's been talking more. So that's usually how it goes. When one of us is talking more, they're behind on the cigar. So do we want to do midway thoughts now, or do we want to hold off on that for a little bit?
No, we can do the midway thoughts. What do you guys think?
Again, not being a cigar smoker, I don't really have any base of reference or anything, but I like it.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's stayed kind of consistently dark. It maybe mellowed a little bit. Still a very, very dark smoke. Haven't noticed any drastic flavor changes or anything.
I like it. I think there's a tang to it. I think it's dark, but it's got a tang that's underneath that's fairly unique. Maybe it's in my head, but it's not bland. It's definitely got body to it.
Yeah, it's not bland at all.
I think the last time I smoked a cigar was in Afghanistan. My lieutenant, he was a cigar smoker, and he had some sent to him, and he came up to me and was like, "Hey, Billman, these are trash cigars, and I know you're out of cigarettes. You want them?" So I smoked cigars because I didn't have cigarettes, and apparently they were trash ones anyway. They weren't Swisher Sweets or anything, but apparently they weren't good ones either.
Black and tans or something.
Maybe.
I have like 2 questions for you, and I asked this for everybody who was in Afghanistan. I worked with quite a few guys that were in Afghanistan building bases over there.
Yep.
Did you ever walk in on those guys fucking each other in a closet?
No. I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan and never saw anything like that. I mean, I always kept my eyes peeled. I was always looking for it, trying to, but never saw it.
One of my very good friends, he's from Chicago via India. And that's the one thing he said that he couldn't get over was that you'd walk around and you'd open up a closet and you find like the cleaners banging each other. And they don't consider it gay. It's like they have wives and shit, and they like fuck at work. He's like, it's horrifying. You have to be careful some places.
Both my deployments, they were both in very remote areas. So most of the people we saw or interacted with were other, the Afghan army or Iraq police, Afghan police, that kind of thing. So there wasn't a lot of opportunities, I assume, for them to really get into that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and the guys that I was talking to there, he does mobile artillery. Like they fly in, fly out kind of thing.
Okay.
So he pretty much hangs out on base all the time, unless they're firing.
Sure.
I guess. And this is like a big news story, and Nate and I have talked about it, and it's very controversial. But did you ever see any of the harems? Like the warlord harem shit that like made it to the news probably 2-3 years ago.
Maybe. I have a pretty terrible memory though. Can you refresh me?
Oh, like so some of these Afghan warlords that the U.S. was allying with, they were like growing heroin or poppy, and then they would have harems of like children that were used for illicit purposes, and the United States government shielded them. And I don't know how like big that was, but apparently it got some people in trouble because they leaked documents and they weren't supposed to.
Well, 9 is the age of consent over there, Mike. You have to understand.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I don't recall ever hearing that, but I don't know. I tend to avoid the news as much as I can.
Oh, sure.
Sadness.
If it bleeds, it leads.
Yep, there's no news like bad news.
Yeah.
Was the line from one of the Bond movies. It always kind of stuck with me.
My wife, I think it was yesterday, on the news, they were covering the Twins opener. She's like, "What the fuck is this? Why are they covering this?" And I was like, "Hey, if this is on the news, then that means we're not hearing any crazy shit." She's like, "That doesn't mean it's not happening, though. We pretend it's not."
That'll be tomorrow's news.
My wife's a big Twins fan because she's from Minneapolis, and I always tell her I'm not a fan of local Minneapolis sports teams, so I don't care. I don't care for the Wolves or the Vikings or the Twins.
But he is a Lynx fan, surprisingly.
Tall women.
Tall, underpaid women, right?
Yeah.
They don't make as much as men.
They're not underpaid. All right. The league loses like $40 million a year. Like they should be getting paid $0 realistically. If you were running a contracting company called Plumbing and Electrical Inc. and you lost $40 million every year, you wouldn't stay in business very long.
No. You mentioned it being Minneapolis teams. Like, yeah, they're all centered down here, but Minnesota is one of the only states that has professional sports teams that are actually called the Minnesota blank, whereas like everything else is like, the St. Louis Cardinals or Chicago Bulls or whatever.
That is true. I just like
that's true, yeah. No, making fun of Minnesota sports was how I grew up, in Wisconsin with winning team, the Packers,
We get your sloppy seconds all the time for football.
Yep. You had Favre, and then his wiener fell out in that picture, unfortunately, and then he scammed a bunch of money off of something or whatever. But all around stand-up guy, I've heard. He just likes riding his tractor, not doing any of that weird, pervy, sexy illegal stuff. But yeah, Sarah, my wife, brought one of her friends, or we went to the Vikings do an open house for the staff that work, and she works security at some of the games sometimes, and we got to go down on the field and everything. Brought the kids, and they were running around, and her friend brought his kids down to the Vikings Hall of Fame, and so I said, "Hey, how was the Vikings Hall of Fame?" And he was like, "Oh, it was good." I'm like, "Yeah, pretty short, huh?" Not much there, not many trophies. Didn't take very long.
Quick run through.
Smaller than the Fishing Hall of Fame.
Yeah, they started the team, they lost, and here we are. You're up to speed.
They're losers. The only good year they had in recent memory, they stole a player from the Packers.
Yeah.
I heard talk about Aaron Rodgers coming to Minnesota.
Didn't he get kind of weird? He got kind of weird, didn't he? Like kind of mouthy and stuff, or like talking a lot of his like own personal opinions.
Yeah.
And things, and criticizing the coaches at Green Bay, because he's not there anymore. I don't know where he is.
New York or something, isn't it?
I watched like one Packer Viking game this past season, and I don't know. I can't keep up with it all.
I don't think I've watched well, no, I guess I watched part of a couple Vikings games.
I can legitimately tell you that I do not know who was in the Super Bowl at all, nor do I care.
Ditto.
Yeah, this is the first year, because usually my wife and I will watch only 2 live televised events per year, and it's the Super Bowl and the Oscars, and this year we didn't watch either. And that's just like how bad everything's gotten. Like even a football game, we would never really watch it for the football game. We'd watch it for the halftime show and the commercials have been absolute trash for like 10 years. And the halftime shows have been like worse and worse, and it's like, can't we just get some like interesting people to perform at the halftime show? But I don't even know who performed this year. And then the Oscars, it's just like, I saw the slap, and I feel like there's nothing else it can give me, you know?
Took me a minute for that one to sink in.
Didn't Rachel Ziegler, or whatever the hell her name is, run her mouth this year? Snow White.
Oh yeah, skin as white as snow. That the evil queen is jealous of her good looks over.
Somebody was calling her, what the hell, like a bobblehead. I was like, I can't remember what comedian it was. It was hilarious.
Yeah, well, you know that because Mike keeps bringing it up, we're going to have to do a movie review of the live action Snow White that can't outperform a Jason Statham soulless action movie, which I'm sure is entertaining because you know exactly what you're going to get with a Jason Statham movie, as you do, unfortunately, now with the Liam Neeson movie. Because in the old days, like Liam Neeson movies, like Rob Roy, The First Taken, like Schindler's List. I mean, they had depth and everything, and now it's just like, here's an old action star who shouldn't be actioning anymore, but guess what? He will.
It's a good movie voice.
Yes. You should use it in a trailer, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, I thought The Beekeeper was fine. Yeah, I lent some vocal stylings to Keith's podcast trailer, and that's out?
No,
your teaser trailer's out?
No, it's...
it'll be out 2 weeks before the first episode, which will be 6 weeks or 4 weeks after or when this episode drops. So we're in the future now, but when we're recording it, we're in the past.
Time warp.
We should all do the time warp.
I don't even know what day it is anymore.
So, I don't know. This is a good question for both of you, even though, well, Mike might have done some of this stuff. I don't know about you, Keith, because I asked you a little bit about it, but we had recently got a new air conditioner unit for our house, and they had this, like, 12-year-old, okay, he was probably 16. I don't know. How old do you recruit people to your cults?
I think you have to have a high school diploma.
Okay, so...
if you're an apprentice, you're allowed to start at 16 now, I think.
I don't think that's okay, maybe if that's new, but I don't know if that's...
Well, Florida's removing all restrictions for child labor. They're going to let kids work overnight, I heard. And
yes.
Work overtime and things like that. The House of Mouse is hungry down there, I guess. Anyway, so they put in this new AC, and this kid was giving me the talk through outside on the outside thing, right? Like the lead foreman, lead guy of the job lead guy.
Foreman.
You can tell I know this, all this lingos. And anyway, he gave me the rundown inside our mechanical room and everything. Like, yeah, we did this and that, and brought it in here, and we could reuse the hoses and things like that. And then he's like, okay, go outside and Brandon with the Y and the OUDG, whatever, like the male equivalent of Kaylee, like Ashley, but like LEIGH. I don't know what his name was. Anyway, he comes out, he's like, oh yeah, so we got this pretty much up to code, and the Sparkies came in and did this and that, and I'm like, dude, are you supposed to be using like trade lingo on me? Are you supposed to not be like, assuming that I'm a homeowner, and don't you dare tell me you got this almost up to code. Like, it's up to code, So, I mean, I know he was young, I didn't give him any grief, but I don't know how you guys normally talk to the, the citizens?
Customer?
Yeah, the customer.
Well, I'm a foreman, and I work commercial construction, and even talking to to job superintendents and project managers and stuff, I try and dumb it down because I can't expect them to know every trade.
I should have played dumb and been like, Spark? There's sparks? What's sparking? What's going on?
Should have.
Yeah, whenever I dealt with the customers, I would just give them almost no information, no real information. And then I would ask them if they have any questions. Just say, yeah, whatever we're here to do, XYZ is completed. It is operating. The inspector will be here within, 3 weeks or whatever the fuck. Whatever it was, and then...
This kid was telling me, he's like, we put the anti-tamper things on here because people like to steal coolant, I guess, and nobody can open these. These are secure. I suppose you could probably find one of these keys on eBay or something, but if you don't have one, you can't get in here. And I'm like, okay. Like what? You telling me in case I have to come and mess with the coolant? You think I'm going to come out here and mess with my own coolant on a new install? I'm not. No. You're coming back here. I'm telling you, I didn't give him any grief.
Yeah, he still got enthusiasm for his job.
But he did reset my giant rat trap out there. He's like, we found this rat trap and accidentally set it off. And so we reset it for you. And I'm like, that's all I need to know. And the AC works, right? Yep. Okay, good. We're good. Trying to catch the neighbor's cat,
Oh, you're going to say kids?
Mike, before you worked for the state, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Before that, 18?
Yeah, I started in 18. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Before that, were you commercial or is it residential?
Commercial and industrial.
Okay.
Mostly, so I mostly did agriculture and heavy industrial work because I had my, instrumentation certification. So when you have that cert, not a lot of guys get it. You can do all the controls for machinery, and you can assist like the robotics guys, and you can do some of the programming and that sort of stuff. So any place that had instruments and heavy machinery, classified locations, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yep. I also did like regular commercial, like built a jail and a school and all that sort of work. The lightest commercial I got to was a Verizon store. I wired a Verizon store, gas station, but that's also classified partially, so that like edges into the industrial area for us.
Sure.
Yeah. I never really worked on houses in the private sector.
Yeah, me either.
Working on houses sucks and it doesn't pay anything. So if you can get 5% over scale doing instrumentation, you're not going to go and get 5% less than scale to go work on a house.
Right. Our pay, our union scale pay doesn't change with residential, but like still, I don't like moving that fast.
Well, I've got a question about your podcast again, Keith.
Let's hear it.
As I've listened to one episode. By the time this comes out, I'll have listened to those that are out. You got, and you're not the first person that I've heard this band from, but your intro and outro, you got permission from a band, Wookiefoot.
Yep.
And I've never listened to Wookiefoot, but I've heard it's fairly popular with people, and I feel I should probably check them out at some point because it's been probably as long as I've known my wife that I've been hearing about Wookiefoot in passing here and there. And
yeah, so it was probably, let's say 2009. I was at home on leave, 2009, 2010, somewhere in there. It was for New Year's, and some friends were like, oh, hey, you want to go to a Wookiefoot show? I'm like, well, I've never heard of them, but I'll check them out. And I just got fucking plastered at their show and went up to the merch booth, which was ran by Mark Murphy, the lead singer. And I was like, just give them all to me. And I think they had like 7 albums out at the time. So I bought all of their albums, Mark Murphy's solo album, and a t-shirt. The next morning, my friends were like, oh, did you like the show? I was like, I sure fucking hope I do. Because I just spent, a couple $100 on all of their shit. And it turns out I did really like them. And since then, I've listened to them often and seen them live again. Actually, I did security at a show for them up in Brainerd. Yeah, I just, thinking about songs that I would like to have as my intro, outro. Again, coming from an audio recording background and pseudo musician, I guess. There's 2 bands I reached out to. One was State Radio, and again, I was plastered and emailed the lead vocalist of that band. And the next day I looked at the email. I was like, yeah, he's not going to respond to this. So the other one was Mark Murphy. I asked him while sober, and then still didn't expect a follow up. So I ended up writing and recording an entire intro, outro, and I had just finalized mixing both of them, and I think I was off to get a haircut, and my phone dinged, and I saw an email from Mark Murphy, and I was like, holy shit. So I looked at it, and he said that you'd be glad to help out in that way. He thought my podcast was a good idea and was happy to lend his music for it. So I immediately scrapped that fucking shit recording that I did and, threw that in there right away.
Well, I'm sure what you did was not absolute shit, but I think the song that you chose works really well with your podcast as the intro and outro.
Yeah, it's called Welcome Home. It's from their album Activate. And, obviously I can't speak for Mark Murphy and what the song means, but, to me it's kind of like a coming home song. And, this whole podcast is about separating from the military and, moving on with your life, welcome home kind of thing, So I thought it was very fitting as well.
Do you find a lot of vets when leaving kind of like the structured, regimented life in the military struggle with finding their own structure and schedule? I don't know if schedule is the right word.
For me, it wasn't that way just because I don't feel like I was ever super institutionalized. I went in when I was 20 years old, so I kind of had my own thing anyway. And I've always kind of been, more anti-establishment in a sense. Like I, have kind of an issue with, bowing down in a sense too. So for me, like it wasn't difficult to get a routine, but it was absolutely difficult for me to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, which, was kind of the reason why I joined in the first place. I was, working a lot of dead-end jobs and not really, I didn't really have a goal or a path in mind. So I just, I joined the Army to kind of help buy me some time to figure out what I wanted to do. And I got out and I got a job right away with the railroad, which is where Dylan works. He helped me get that job, and I got a DWI my very first week working there. You have to hold a CDL to keep that job, at least in that particular job. So yeah, I it's a bureaucracy at BNSF, and it took a while for that news to make it to the top. So I ended up lasting 6 weeks. I got a few paychecks out of the deal at least, but I ended up getting let go and was kind of back to square one where I didn't know what I wanted to do again. And just beyond that, kind of took a interesting path to get where I am today. Like, again, I'm a plumber, and you definitely don't need a bachelor's degree to be a plumber, but, I went and did that and tried out a few other jobs and ultimately went into construction.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I went to college and decided that I didn't want to be a school teacher. And I became an electrician because there was a shit ton of work at Western North Dakota at the time. And there was no work anywhere else. So
and no cleanup, right, Mike?
And no cleanup. And no cleanup. We're on the ground. Who gives a shit? Hey, man, you got to do it. Not an altercation. This is many years ago. I was at an elevator and I was replacing a motor pump. And then we were going to do a robotic control arm repair. And over by the motor pump, I left a mess of wires, kind of laying there. And my truck was over there, so I wasn't done yet. But one of the guys came up and was like, "Hey, you left a mess over by grain bin, whatever, next to the pit." I'm like, "You're paying me $250 an hour to be here right now. And we're doing time and material for you. Do you want me to pick up the mess, or do you want to pick up the mess?" And they never had us clean up again, ever. They just sent one of their guys after us and had them clean up so we didn't have to do it. I was like, hell yeah, man. That was the best brag I ever did in my entire life. Didn't have to clean up anything for that whole project. We did lightning protection and all sorts of shit, and didn't clean up a thing.
Yeah, I'd rather get paid to clean up.
I was doing 12-hour days. Didn't matter to me.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, to be fair, I usually task the cleanup with, to the apprentice anyway, so it's not like I'm doing it.
All right, I've got two more questions for you, Keith, that are kind of sort of related to military stuff. I guess I know what my grandpa said. He was a World War II vet, and he was not a fan of this. My dad is not a fan of this, but he's not a vet. Not that people that aren't vets don't have opinions, but I'm always curious to hear what the veterans think about certain things. And I know your opinions are your opinions and not of all vets everywhere. The people who kneel for the national anthem, are they being disrespectful, or are they exercising their First Amendment right?
I feel like they're exercising their First Amendment right. I guess it's not something that I would do. I'm not going to it's not even going to make me bat an eye that somebody else is doing it.
Yeah, because you don't feel they're protesting you.
No.
Or saying anything against you specifically, or maybe even the vets at all. Usually they're protesting something else that the government government decided to do. Or
even if they were specifically protesting me, like specifically me, like I don't care. That's your opinion. You're free to do that.
I do get a lot of those emails like, help us protest Keith on this day. And I'm like, I'm busy. No, I'm not gonna protest Keith on this day. Some other day maybe, but I'm busy this day. So.
I said yes to one of them when I showed up and nobody was there.
Sounds like you're the one listener of that podcast, Mike. All right, the next question, and I worked with this guy, and I don't know, Mike, if I've talked about this on the show or not. Maybe I have. Maybe I've brought it up. It borders on conspiracy theory a little bit. Maybe it's a full blown conspiracy theory. I don't know. It's not lizard people or reptile people or whatever it is. But he served over in Iraq, and I think I told you one time when we were hanging out that he never reacclimated to the Minnesota weather, and so he always had like a neck warmer on, even in like not in like June or July. Maybe early August, but the rest of the year he did. And he just never got used to the temperatures here. But his belief was that wars and why the war in Iraq took so long is that the ruling elites start wars as a measure of population control.
I don't think that's... I don't think there's any truth behind that at all.
Well, I think that people think that there's truth behind it, but I think they think these people are a lot smarter than they are. The recent leaking war plans by adding somebody that's not supposed to be in the group chat into the group chat kind of shows that they're really not any smarter than anyone else out there. And maybe even towards the opposite end of that, where they're maybe quite a bit dumber than most people in the country. So you'd have to have a lot of foresight. Somebody would, to be like, hey, our population is getting kind of crazy right now, even though we have like all of Montana that's unpopulated, except for the one place where Dylan lives, to like be able to think about it in terms like that. Like, I don't know.
I mean, for any conspiracy to be true, there has to be a lot of people that are good at keeping secrets, because there's, no matter what it is, there's just a lot of people to push that agenda forward. And, I'm not saying, no conspiracy is true or anything. I'm sure there are. That one, I definitely don't think, though.
Yeah.
I think, a more realistic conspiracy for war would be, one that everybody's heard, like, we're over there for oil. I would say that one could be definitely possible, but that one seems odd to me, though. The population control one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to back you up on that, Keith. Like, a crazy conspiracy is not necessary when a lot of military leaders are quite open about the fact that we are engaged in many of these theaters for resource control. It's not like the reason why the war never ends is because it doesn't need to end for the contractors to make money. And as long as you're controlling the resources of that region, it doesn't matter. Like, Afghanistan has minerals, and Iraq obviously has oil, and South America has trade routes and cocaine and fruits and all sorts of other things going on. And it's pretty widely known that the CIA back in the day was selling cocaine, so it makes sense to have some level of control over that production. So I don't think I've ever heard that.
Another reason would be
populate, at least,
Another reason would be military bases, right? We get to keep military bases in a lot of these places that we're active in and have left, from what I'm aware. Is that true?
Yeah, sure. Also, there's a lot of people that are profiting off of war too, like, KDR and Halliburton. They, back in the day anyway, they were in charge of, feeding the troops in theater and stuff like that. And you correct me if I'm wrong, I think that one of those companies was owned by Dick Cheney. So, he was profiting off of that. So obviously he was gonna, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't take a wizard to put the dots together when 100 years ago, Smedley Butler talked about how war was a racket and that all these military contractors are selling products to the military that were never even used. They were just thrown away. Back then, I can't imagine the sort of waste that's in the system now. It's not the fault of any personnel in the military. It's the hierarchical structure of it that causes that issue. But
yeah, and I'm sure a lot of money gets buried too. Like, the whole $45 hammer thing or whatever. Like, yeah, I'm sure they're actually paying $20 for the hammer, and then the other $25 goes to the CIA to do their thing, and that money's not tracked accordingly.
I was told directly by somebody who was aware of the situation that the $1,500 toilet seats and things like that that's buried black budget money. It's not. Yeah, they're paying the regular price for everything, and then the extra tack on is because certain organizations don't have official budgets. It's a hidden budget for a reason, and rightfully so. Like, it doesn't need to be nefarious. You probably don't want communist, the Soviet Union, to know what your CIA budget is.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and more importantly, we don't want Karen down at the PTA knowing what's really going on in some instances, right?
Oh yeah,
for sure.
I mean, that's part of government and or leadership to some extent, is to do a lot of the things that need to be done in war, specifically and especially. Things have to be secret. Like, you can't just say, okay, we're gonna publish our war plans in the group chat. Oh no, wait, that's okay. But you can't broadcast what you're doing, and you can't broadcast where you're, like, if you're developing a new weapon, you have to have very expensive toilets in order to fund that weapon, because you can't just have a budget line item of, secret thing that's going to do this. So
I don't know where these toilet seats are going, because every time, when I deployed, I was shitting in fucking boxes and in holes in the ground. So I would have killed for a $2,500 toilet seat.
Or even a $5 one.
Yeah.
One of the ones you put on top of a 5-gallon pail or whatever. But
always mark the corner of the treater building. That's what I was told. Always mark the corners. That's so in the oil and gas industry in the wintertime, the heater-treater buildings are heated, and that's the only building that is. So you can dig a hole in them. But you got to mark it, because you don't want to redig a hole that was already dug. You know what I mean?
We used to, luckily I had some rank by this point, but in Afghanistan, we used to work at, small command outposts that we had to burn our shit. We, pour diesel fuel on it and light on fire, and some unlucky private has to sit there and stir it.
Was that just to get rid of it, or was there some other, it would lure in like wildlife or something?
Just to get rid of it. Yeah.
Sure. Well, my hot take is I'm still behind going to war after 9/11. Having it take 20 years, I'm a little less behind that, but that's my hot take, is I think it was justifiable action on our part. Again, that's a critique or a comment on the administration at the time, not on any vets, for sure. And I'm also behind dropping the bombs on Japan in World War II, because it did end up saving an awful lot of American lives.
I'll double down, and I will support the dropping of the bombs, but I will come out as against military action after 9/11. I was against it then, and I'm against it now. It was never going to be successful, right? Like, Western powers have been involved in that part of the country for part of the world for over 100 years, and it was destined to fail unless we were going to take some pretty extreme actions, like borderline genocidal actions. It was never going to be a successful mission. So, and they knew it at the time.
Afghanistan in particular has been at war since the beginning of time, and nobody's ever been able to stop any faction within that country.
Yeah, the fish grew legs and came out on land swinging in Afghanistan. I think
conquer Afghanistan with like the crazy mass killings, and I don't know if you've read about it. They did some pretty wild stuff in India and Afghanistan to control the population, and it failed miserably.
Yeah, no, I read a book while I was in Afghanistan on basically the entire history of Afghanistan, and although the entire book was just a failure on every faction that came in there to try and take over or whatever.
Well, my take is I'm still for it going after 9/11, regardless of the outcome of what the outcome was in Afghanistan or even Iraq, because it's more of a message to everyone else that we're willing to dedicate resources and things to, under the guise of defense, I suppose. But, since 9/11, there have been numerous terrorist attacks still in London and other places in Europe where there haven't been in America. And maybe they're just not publicized, but you hear about these terrorist attacks in those other countries and they just haven't been here. And I think the message was received, regardless of the outcome of those offenses.
Either that or our domestic groups are doing a better job at, preventing those from happening as well.
Well, not TSA. They don't know how to cup the balls. I mean, it's a basic principle. If you're going to go down there, you got to cup. You get a little cuppage.
If they do that, I'm going to the airport more often.
I have a really nice picture of my brother getting the full body pat down from TSA, and he's got a look on his face like, I can't believe you're taking this picture right now. Good times.
Oh, my God. Jordan, who's on the show show previously and I went on a trip, and we left out of the Minot airport, and we were going to be on a plane for a long time. So we got the full security, scan in Minot, and the security guard there grabbed my nutsack. And I was like, really, dude? Like 2 fucking white guys?
What are you packing down here? What are you packing down here?
You grab my nuts going out of the airplane? What do you think I'm going to hide?
I got to see if you're worth bringing in the back room or not.
Was that a 38 special?
Yeah.
So you got a little Derringer down here.
Nope, that's my penis.
We went there.
Well, only because TSA went there first.
Yeah.
Yeah. They weren't checking the whores going in and out of the airport. I can tell you that. But what the hell?
Gotta pay for that.
Yep. Are you guys done with your cigar? Getting close?
Yeah, I'm just done with mine. I think I just took the last puff off of it.
I'm basically there as well.
Final thoughts, Mike or Keith?
I feel like this one got better the more I smoked it.
Yeah, I liked it all the way through. It's a very dark but complex smoke. I think you're right, Mike, it's not just dark for darkness' sake, but the flavor was great all the way through. It never got bitter or anything like that.
I got a little bitterness at the end, but I smoked it till it was like a half an inch long. So there's not a lot you can do about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I liked it. It was very good. I put it 4.25. I don't think it's a 5.
I don't think it's a 5. I don't think it's as good. You know what? I'll go 4.25 on that. I think it's good. We get to have Keith's rating as well. We rate on a 5-point scale.
4.286.
4.286 because he hates all the math that I'm going to do later to get the average on that.
You're welcome.
Yes. I feel like it had a fairly nice nicotine content as well, which was good.
It definitely did.
Yes. This one is good. Check out Keith's podcast, Life After the Military Now What? It is available anywhere that you find podcasts, and 28aprilproductions.com. He has a Facebook page. I will put all these links in our episode description. And thank you for your service, Keith. And thank you for coming on the show and talking about your podcast and some interesting trade talk with our good friend Michael over here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And if there are any veterans that listen to this podcast, I know one specifically, me. If there are any other ones, shoot me a line, Keith at 28aprilproductions.com. That's KEITH at 28aprilproductions.com. I'd like to have you on the podcast.
Good. Thank you for listening.
Be safe. Have fun.